Ooh, baby. The NHL playoffs are offering up all kinds of intriguing storylines, and that's why we're focusing in on Dallas, Colorado, and everything that you need to know on Wednesday's episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Let's tap in and get this paper.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Dallas, Colorado. If you weren't fired up yet, you are now. And that's why you're tapped right back into your daily source for fantasy hockey and NHL news. It's the Wednesday episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Steele, there is so much to get to, and thankfully we only have one game in series to focus on today's episode. But, I still got to give a shout out to the everydayers holding us down, everybody out there making us your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get 150 bones in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Steele, usually you and I have so many different angles to cover from around the league. Today, we got to focus on Dallas, Colorado. Valeri Nichushkin, I know you have a take on this. This is a bit of an embarrassing situation for this player because he has been so good for the Colorado Avalanche. They need him. Devon Toews. There's other angles that we got to get to, but we'll start there. Also, Dallas, Colorado. They are on the ropes now, Steele. Miro, Heiskanen, Wyatt Johnston getting it done. I mentioned some of these intriguing angles that I brought up to you off air. Today is a Dallas, Colorado special. However, it's short and sweet. We always get y'all in and out in 30 minutes. Today, it's going to be less than that. Steele's about to lose his cornea because of the sun up in Muskoka. But right over to you, brother, because look, at the end of the day, as much as I did predict Dallas, and I'm happy to see this go down, when you see Nichushkin go out in the fashion that he did last year, and it really did suck the wind out of the sails of the Avalanche, and Devon Toews is out, I don't know about you, but I think you were the one to text me first saying they ain't coming out of this series.
No, they are not. And we're going to talk about, because it's the only game on tonight's schedule, Dallas Stars and Colorado. So we're going to talk about the same game parlay later in this episode for big time bets. I'm not going to allude to any, winner right now, but it's over. It's over for the Colorado Avalanche, especially after what's going on now with Valeri Nichushkin. And like you said, Devon Toews might be out for this game. Again, I'm not going to pick a winner. I do have a same game parlay, but I don't see them coming. Yeah, I don't see them coming out of this series alive. I don't see them getting out of this series going to the Western Conference Finals.
We did say the Rangers had the Carolina Hurricanes cooked as well. That didn't pan out as well, but I think
it's not panning out well.
This is a whole different angle, and I just wanted to throw that out there because I can feel the keyboard warriors already going because you and I were both back in the Rangers the other night, and they got dusted. We'll talk about that series on tomorrow's episode. However, right back over to you. I just wanted to say that the last time you and I were really feeling a clear angle, it didn't work out. However, it feels a lot different, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, let's see what also happens with our same game parlay and the Oilers with Calvin Pickard going in for that game 4 action. So we're going to have to see what happens for that. Hopefully we're bouncing back in a big way. But yeah, the Colorado Avalanche, I just, it's very tough for them. It's very tough for them to move forward after, what's transpired over the last couple of days. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I think at this point, if I was Jared Bednar, I know Jack Johnston had that quote that was very straight to the point. Like he made his choice. That's all I'm going to say. If I'm the GM, for the Colorado Avalanche, Chris McFarland, if I'm the head coach, Jared Bednar, if I'm Nathan McKinnon, Mikko Rantanen, and Cale Makar, I'm done with this guy. I don't want him on my team. And I know his contract goes until 2029, 2030 is his last season under contract with the Colorado Avalanche. If there's some way in the contract that they're able to terminate it because of what's transpired, and we don't know exactly what's happened, but I sent you my theory.
We don't
know. We're speculating, and I sent you my theory the other day, and we're not going to I'm not going to make that public because again, we're not going to speculate to the craziest degree. But I gave you my theory, and I actually think that could very possibly be exactly what's happening right now, or even just happening again. And exactly
either way you slice it, it's not good.
It's not good because you go back to last year in the playoffs with Seattle, and I know, that, we still don't even know the full details of that, but we know somewhat of what happened in Seattle with at the
enough,
hotel room. We know enough. And now it's a year later, and now he's back into the NHL player assistance program in the stage 3. So now he's not even eligible to participate for 6 months. He's not eligible to return until November 15th. And even then, he has to, pretty much speak on his behalf of why he should come back to the NHL. If I'm the Colorado Avalanche and I'm Chris McFarland and I'm the GM on this team, I'm done with this guy. If there's a way to terminate his contract, I would do it immediately because Nathan McKinnon, Cale Makar, Mikko Rantanen, and the rest of the team, they do not deserve this.
That coupled with a guy like Devon Toews, however, I think it's Devon Toews anyway, really just sucked the wind out of this Colorado Avalanche team. There's a quote out there that they looked frozen in game 4, and I think that's exactly how they looked. And then you hear about, Toews has an illness, and we know what this can do for other players on the team. If he's sick, what's the likelihood, Steele, of other guys on the team being sick? This happens in every sport. This is a caveat that you have to kind of deal with. And, we'll talk about Roope Hintz and Chris Tanev after the break, but to focus on Nichushkin, you saw in the quote from a leader in,
Jack Johnston.
Thank you. Making the quote of Nichushkin made his decision. They immediately ripped his name out of the locker room. This is just one of those things that is hard to overcome. And when you have 2 games of a team in the Dallas Stars really feeling it, and then you guys, the Colorado Avalanche weren't, that is so hard to overcome. And I'll leave it at this before I can tell you got one more point here. Nichushkin is done in the fantasy realm. If you were trying to maybe think of in Keeper Dynasty, you might hang on to him in an IR spot or something. Do not waste any capital. Don't look at him as a sneaky ad. This guy is toast in the NHL. And I think this is one of those situations, Steele, that, he was getting it done for this team on the ice in the postseason especially, but he is not worth the risk anymore. And you mentioned the players that are definitely done with him. Fantasy GMs out there, obviously, this is a clear-cut take. Let go of him completely. Do not try and get tricky with Nichushkin. He's cooked.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very weird thing that's going on with this player. And this is back-to-back years. And that's all I'm going to leave it at.
He has a problem, and I hope he gets help because he has a problem.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. He has a problem. He needs help. He needs to be willing to put in the effort and willing to put in that time to get better. And clearly he really hasn't. Again, if there's some way for Colorado to terminate his contract, I think I would. If I was in the front office.
I'm trying to look into that now, Steele. I don't know.
It's very tough. So, I would be terminating his contract if you can't, if he can somehow possibly come back in November or December, maybe you pick him up. But even then, just you're so worried about what he can possibly do in the future. If he's playing, he's a great fantasy player. I'd pick him up if he was playing in the NHL and he was playing some good hockey. But I mean, I just don't see what his future in the NHL will look like at this point. I think you're right. I think he's probably done. I think, again, if Colorado can terminate his contract, they have to do it.
That's enough to be discussed about him and how that affects the team, because there's a couple more angles that I want to talk about right around the break, Steele. They're much more positive and fantasy hockey focused. We also have same game parlays for Wednesday night. Also, make sure you're tapping into that Instagram account. Steele and I are firing off content every single day. Bets, breakdowns, stats, Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod on IG. Make sure you smash that follow. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Policygenius. Policygenius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace, saving you time and money so you can provide your family with financial safety starting today. With Policygenius, you find life insurance policies that start at just, Steele, get this, $292 per year for up to $1 million in coverage. Some options offer same-day approval and avoid unnecessary medical exams. Steele, you know how I feel about those unnecessary medical exams. Check life insurance off your to-do list in no time with Policygenius. Head to policygenius.com/LockedOnNHL or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quote and see how much you could be saving. That's policygenius.com YouTube.com/LockedOnNHL.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Are you still watching on Fox Sports or ESPN, though? You have to turn down the volume with all that shouting. Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day, bringing you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube, or you can also find it on the free Amazon Fire TV channel app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Thank you so much for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. Continue to hit the subscribe button, the follow button, leave a 5-star review. Go follow us on our brand new account, Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod. Flip has been posting nonstop content on there. He's been absolutely killing it. Our first videos up there with our same game parlay of that Edmonton Oilers game. So
hope it hits.
This episode's going to come out the day after the game, but anyway, go check out, go follow us. We'd really appreciate it. And this is, continuing the conversation about the Colorado Avalanche, the Dallas Stars. I know we're going to talk about Miro Heiskanen and Wyatt Johnston. I know you got maybe another point on the Colorado Avalanche side of things. But yeah, let's continue the conversation because this series has not gone the way I think we both thought it would.
I got points across the board, and I think all the main ones have been covered in the media. I guess I just want to start sinking our teeth into some of these fantasy angles. I alluded to it with Nichushkin. I just want to start with Wyatt Johnston first and foremost, once again, Steele, because it's not just me who's liking this player. Come on. He scores a shorty to start the game, a shorthanded goal. Then he pops the second goal of the game. That's on the power play. And why don't I just bring up the only other time that's been done, Steele, in the NHL postseason in the history of hockey? Only Wayne Gretzky has done that at age 21 or under. I'm not trying to say this guy is Wayne Gretzky. But I know. But you really need to start considering Wyatt Johnston, and this is where I got to make it fantasy once again. Steele, is he playing himself into the top 3 rounds? 3 might be bold, but I don't think he should be sliding past the 4th. The first 2, I think, would be a stretch for him. But I'm seeing him in deeper formats in a lot of GM leagues. Like if there's a bunch of GMs in the league, I don't think he should be sliding much past the middle of the 4th round. And let me just hit you with one more stat to kind of round that out. And I have so many Wyatt Johnston stats, it's a little bit upsetting. Most playoff game-winning goals before the age of 21. It's Jaromir Jagr at 5, and now Wyatt Johnston at 4. So Jaromir Jagr, Wayne Gretzky, playoff records, you need to start paying attention, and I'll just round it out with this last one. Because of COVID and his junior status, he was maybe a little bit overlooked, but in his last year in junior, he led the OHL in scoring, Steele, with 124 points in 68 games. So the caliber for this player, this isn't just me going off. He is the real deal, and I think you're starting to see it with regularity. Wyatt Johnston, a special player who's catapulting this Stars team to Cup favorite status, and you know I like that.
I know you do love that. I know you love this Dallas Stars team. I know you love Wyatt Johnston. And that's why I was saying the other day that doing a top 5 Dallas Stars players in order, he could be number 1 at this point. And that's crazy to say when they have Miro Heiskanen, Jason Robertson, Roope Hintz, Jake Ottinger. I mean, this team is just looking so good, and their future is looking so bright right now. Again, we've talked about Logan Stakeoven throughout the season. We've talked about Thomas Harley throughout the season. We've talked tremendously about all these players throughout the season. I know you've been high on them since the very beginning about going deep in the playoffs, and they're making you look very, very smart right now.
Let's not get too crazy, Steele, but yes, thank you.
That's not crazy at all. You're a very smart fellow over there, but
we're getting close.
This is definitely a conversation we're going to have in the offseason. After the playoffs is done, we're going to have to go through a lot of teams, talk about their top 5 players, who's fantasy 1, who's value. 2, who's 3, fantasy value. I will say this. I don't think he is a top 3 draft player.
Yeah. It's a bold take. No, I'm just more so questioning it.
Yeah. I would feel comfortable at this point because I don't know exactly where he was going last year, what his ADP was.
Late.
I would feel more comfortable with maybe the 5th round or 6th round. And that's solely just based off of what we saw from the Dallas Stars team as a collective this year, because you know Jason Robertson, Miro Heiskanen, they're going to be some of the first to go off the board.
For sure.
And even at this
Ottinger.
point, in Ottinger, and even at this point, Jason Robertson and Miro Heiskanen are like a late 2nd, early 3rd for some of those guys. Depending on which player we're talking about.
And the format, for sure, of the league.
And the format, especially. Yep. And Robertson, even, he finished with 80 points. And that's, that was, compared to the year before, that was a down year for him.
Yep.
And Wyatt Johnston, I know he's continuing to impress us all, but, still 65 points. And that's incredible by itself, but it's still
a young player,
points.
Small sample size. So I'm with 100%. You on this.
If we're talking keeper league, he's definitely top 2-3 rounds. Definitely 100%. If we're doing keeper league, he might not even be on the board in a keeper league.
He's not going to be. Yeah.
He's not going to be.
So
if we're going year to year league, I think 5th, 6th, even 7th round. Again, we got to see what the ADP was, but I would feel comfortable from 5 to 7.
So game 5, series shifts back to Big D, Texas hockey. That barn's going to be rocking. Dallas is hungry for a winner, Steele, after all of the disappointment from the Cowboys. We're not here to stick holes in the football side of things. Miro Heiskanen, though, there was that interesting little story that I alluded to off the top.
Yeah.
Miro Heiskanen and Cale Makar were top draft picks for both Colorado and Dallas interchangeably in that draft year. Nolan Patrick and Nico Hischier went before these two guys, Steele. That was a mistake. Miro Heiskanen was almost a Colorado Avalanche and vice versa. So it's very intriguing that these two guys are going toe-to-toe. Miro Heiskanen, and that's where I just want to kind of round out this segment, and we can talk about whatever else you want around the break and bets. We're going to get short, I promise.
Yeah.
Miro Heiskanen is playing his way. You and I have been kind of alluding to these over the playoffs. He might be the number one guy playing his draft stock up. And we were kind of waiting on this kind of performance from this player in terms of in the clutch. And now you're getting all this love towards this Dallas Stars team, which I think you and I and other dedicated fantasy heads have been ready to give Miro Heiskanen. So I just need to come on here and say he was sensational. He did it again, a goal and 2 assists. He's getting it done at both ends of the ice. He's eating almost 28 minutes of ice time per night. And Steele, he's not even scraping the surface, in my opinion, in terms of what he can do on an everyday basis. He is going to be 25 years old this summer, and yeah, I checked the number. He is just entering his prime. This Dallas Stars team, for some reason, they don't get it done this year, Steele. They're going to run back basically the same core for the most part of young players. This is one of those angles for fantasy. You mine this Dallas Stars team over and over again. You go back, you get Stankoven, you get Johnston, you get Heiskanen, you keep going back to the well. Fill out your roster with the Sagans of the world, because this team, all the way down to the Mason Marchments of the world, they are really well built. Shout out to Jim Nill.
Yeah, and he's really, his contract is looking like one of the best in the league right now. And again, it's hard to say, it's very hard to compare him with Cale Makar, because Cale Makar came into the league and just dominated right off the start. And I think that's what we knew, but it was going to take time for Miro Heiskanen to try to get to that level. But
different
now he's
players,
getting there.
Different
players,
storylines.
100%.
For sure, with you.
100%. But the contract of $8.45 million a year, it was very big right off the bat. But like we're saying, he's playing heavy minutes. He's dominating the playoffs. It's a two-way game. Jim Nill is one of the best GMs right now in the NHL. So Miro Heiskanen, his fantasy value continues to go up a lot with some of these young Dallas Star players right now. Like we've talked about, Wyatt Johnston, Thomas Harley is going to be one of those guys to get off the board a lot sooner than later. This Dallas Stars team is playing incredible. They're one win away from the Western Conference Finals. And they've just dominated the Colorado Avalanche so far. And we're going to talk about that with big time bets right now after the break. But first, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. It's winner takes all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel's giving you a shot to bring home a big win on your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and so much more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to hit the subscribe, the follow button, leave a 5-star review. We appreciate all that love and support you show us Monday through Friday, 7 o'clock in the morning. Eastern time is when you can find our episodes. Only one game on the schedule, Dallas Stars, Colorado Avalanche, just like we've talked about all episode long. Flip, over to you, same game parlay. What are you looking at for tonight?
Roope Hintz left the game. He's got a wrist injury, questionable. Chris Tanev apparently he also is dealing with a lower body injury. He's been a massive shutdown D-man with Lindell. He is also questionable, but it's looking like he is for sure going to play. Apparently, he looked totally normal at practice the other day. There are some question marks here for the Dallas Stars with those two players out. Craig Smith, to a lesser extent. This is what happens at the point in the playoffs. You know, we just saw it affect the Colorado Avalanche. They lost Nichushkin and Devon Toews, and they looked like a completely different unit. If Tanev and Roope Hintz are out, I would change my tune on this, but I'm not backing off the Dallas Stars now. I made a mistake the other night to do it. They are the more complete team. Now with those caveats, if the Colorado Avalanche have a sickness running through them, that's not going to take away anything from the talent or anything. That's not like that angle. It's just one of those hurdles you're going to have to clear. That is so difficult to handle, Steele. I'm going to spit it out. Dallas Stars money line. I'm going to go over 5.5 because if Colorado has any shot in this game, they're going to need to pop at least 2 or 3 or more goals. So I'm going over 5.5. I'm teasing it down. That's the lock of the night. But I actually think there's going to be a good opportunity for another young player in Logan Stankoven to make his mark once again. And I think an anytime point for Stankoven is going to get you a nice little value bump here. Dallas Stars money line over 5.5 and Stankoven anytime point. If you haven't noticed, I'm a little bit wary of wagering on anything on the Colorado Avalanche side of things. Although I just want to leave it at this. I think they're going to get theirs in this one. I think the momentum and everything that you and I covered on today's episode is going to eventually translate into a Stars win here. So give me the over 5.5. Give me the Stars, and then honestly, take any player you like on the Stars for an anytime point. But I'm going to go with Stankoven for a little bit of value, Steele.
I'm not as confident as you as picking a winner in this matchup, so I'm staying away from the money line because it is still the Colorado Avalanche. It's still Nathan McKinnon. It's still Cale, Makar, Mikko Rantanen, and those guys. But I'm definitely staying away from the money line. That's why I am remaining at the under 6.5 in this matchup for my first pick. Especially if they're
maybe we get lucky again.
Maybe we get lucky, but especially if they're without Devon Toews, they're going to need a lot more of their forwards helping in the defensive zone. Gorgiev's going to have to be at his best. And Jake Ottinger has just been incredible in this series so far. So I'm going with the Stars Avalanche under 6.5. I just think it's going to be a little bit of a tighter game with a lot on the line for both teams. So that's just the route I'm going with, under 6.5. But I'm going with the two guys that we've talked about in this entire episode, with the first one being Heiskanen. Miro Heiskanen anytime assist, and Cale Makar anytime assist. I think the two defensemen who went 3rd and 4th overall in their draft year, the two guys are now dominating for their team, who are dominating on the blue line, who dominate the power play. They're going to get theirs as well. So I love the anytime assist from both Cale Makar and Miro Heiskanen with the Stars and Avalanche under 6.5. Heiskanen, though, anytime assist is my lock of the night.
Heiskanen, anytime assist, along with another Dallas Star and Stankoven, anytime point. Those are the locks of the night. I say hammer time, Steele.
Hammer time indeed on Wednesday. Thank you so much for making Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Once again, make sure you go check out Locked On Sports today. They've launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. You can also find them on the free Amazon Fire TV channel app. They cover all the top sports stories of the day, 24/7 from local experts of Locked On. So make sure you don't miss out any of their latest episodes. And once again, thank you so much for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. Have a great day. Good luck with all your bets out there. And we shall see you back here again tomorrow.
Peace.